How often are we told to protect ourselves from the sun? A lot, but I always took it lightly because I thought the only problem was getting burned, which happened from time to time, but then I would heal and everyone was happy, right? Wrong! What I should have been told is that the sun emits ultraviolet rays that can irreparably damage the DNA of cells, causing permanent damage that you can't recover from. And by exposing ourselves constantly, for a prolonged time and without protection, the more the DNA gets damaged, the more likely it is for skin diseases to develop, like melanoma, a skin cancer that, if not caught in time, can send you to the grave. Maybe if I'd heard it put that way, I would have been more careful to protect my precious skin, and I would have found it much more interesting to learn about the most common mistakes people make when sunbathing. Skipping sunscreen to tan faster. The skin tans as a form of protection from UV rays, but it tans after being hit by UV rays. And while an occasional punch doesn't do much harm, it's a different story when you get a barrage of punches all at once. Water, wind, and killer clouds are even worse. The natural remedy against the sun? Clouds give you a bit of shade, and the wind and the sea cool you down. But no, nature is like a mafia, it can't wait to take us out. Clouds filter very little UV rays, water reflects some of them, actually increasing our exposure. And the wind makes us think, oh, it's cool, I don't see any reason to protect myself. The skin. Putting on sunscreen only if you feel your skin is hot. If you feel your skin is hot, it's already too late. It's like putting on a helmet after hitting a tree. Sunscreen should be applied before sun exposure and reapplied often, especially when you sweat or go swimming. Even if the sunscreen is waterproof, it just means it's more resistant, but not invincible. In fact, if you read the label, it actually says to reapply it after swimming. But Mrs. Waterproof Sunscreen, you must be a bit disappointed. Just doing a quick swipe over the most exposed areas and calling it a day. Our body isn't made up of just the face, arms, and legs. There are many other parts you wouldn't think of that can get burned. For example, the ears. Be careful behind your ears. One time I got sunburned around my lips. Apparently, a beard isn't sunproof. Just a quick swipe over the whole body and you're done. Here's where it gets tricky. The recommended amount of sunscreen is much more than we're used to thinking, about 30 grams for the whole body. That means a 200 ml tube is only enough for 6 applications. I know it's a scam, but that's what happens when you spend hours at the beach. Given how expensive it is, reusing last year's leftover sunscreen seems smart, even though after seeing how much you need, it's unlikely there will be any left. The catch though is that once it's opened, the sunscreen, like many products, starts to degrade. On the label, there's a little open jar symbol that indicates the shelf life, usually 12 months after that period. Protection is no longer guaranteed. Speeding up your tan by exposing yourself at noon. Another thing I did, and I hate myself for it. That's why it's not recommended to stay under the sun during the central hours of the day, even with sunscreen, because it's not an invulnerable protection, and the rays are really strong. Some weather apps, like the one on the iPhone, show the hours of the day with the highest UV intensity. I recommend taking a look at it and putting on sunscreen if you're going to the beach. We often associate sunbathing with lying on a deck chair, but in reality, the sun is a stalker. Whether you look for it or not, it follows you everywhere, except in Milan. Just walking around the market during the hottest hours is enough to get roasted without even realizing it. Here too, I'm speaking from experience. Just grabbing whatever cheap sunscreen you can find, because buying the cheapest one is always the smart move. But there are some factors that are important to consider when choosing a sunscreen. The SPF, sun protection factor, indicates the level of protection. SPF 30 means that only 1 out of 30 UV rays gets through, which means it blocks 97% of UV rays. The lighter your skin and the more sun exposure you get, the higher protection you need. Remember to follow all the rules for effectiveness. Higher protection is better than lower. It should be able to protect against both UVA and UVB, the 2 types of UV rays we're exposed to. Of course, check the expiration date and how long it lasts. Once it's opened, I'm sure many of these instructions have already been told to you, usually when you're about to go out or thinking about other things. That's why I thought of putting them all together in a video that you can watch calmly and that clearly explains their benefits, which are anything but superficial, because the sooner you know and follow them, the better. In short, it's a video that would have done me good to watch when I was a kid because I was stupid.